Hi everyone, welcome again to another episode of Ndeipi MuDiaspora. My name is Sinikiwe.
I'm Mutsa.
I'm Spiwe.
And we just want to start off by thanking everybody for the views and the likes and the sharing on Facebook and Instagram. It was so overwhelming. I am so excited, guys.
Like Finky did say, thank you. You guys could have been anywhere else today, but you guys are here joining us again for another episode, and we really would like to thank you guys for that. You guys gave us lots of good comments and lots of good feedback that we will be incorporating this season.
Yes, and this show is nothing without viewership. So we greatly appreciate each and every one of you who've tuned in, who've commented. We want to encourage you guys to continue to engage with us because this journey that we're on is just as much your journey as it is our journey. Yes. So we want to encourage you guys to continue to comment, join in on the discussion, all of that good stuff, because we really enjoyed hearing from you. And actually, with this second episode of Ndeipi MuDiaspora, we decided that we would like to share a little bit more of our journeys moving to the U.S. from Zimbabwe.
Yeah, actually this week when I was watching the views and watching the comments and everything that was going on, I had this moment where I came here when I was 20. So when I went to the US Embassy, you know, you had to get there first thing in the morning, those who went to the embassy in Zimbabwe, and you had to stand in line, you know, and wait for your turn. And I remember when I went up to the counter, you know, to talk to the lady and say, I want to go to America to visit, you know, family, she said to me, you don't have enough money to go to America. and I had to think real quick. I had to stop and think. I said, okay, is it okay if I get my mom's bank statement and bring it to you? And she was like, sure, that's fine. So I went home, of course, cried to my mom. And then we did get a bank statement. It wasn't really my mom's bank statement, it was my aunt's, you know. And those who know POSB, which is Post Office Savings Book, she had an account there, and that was a savings account. And she gave me the book, and I took it to the embassy, and the lady's eyes were like, wow. She was like, okay. And I said, all right. And then she just said to me, well, you can check tomorrow, because that's what they did. You just have to check the next day. They don't tell you whether you get it or not. So you still leave there with all this anxiety of, am I going to go to America? Am I going to go to America? I want to go to America. And at 20, you know how you feel. So I went back the next day and I checked and I got my visa to come to the US. Woo! I was excited. I was ecstatic. I was like, baby, I'm out of here.
Check me in, baby. That's so funny.
So my journey didn't start off at the embassy. My journey started off in Kwekwe, Zimbabwe in 1985. And then a few years later, in 1989, their journey did come to an end when my parents did decide to come to America. So then all I could do was pack my 3-year-old little things. I said bye to the girls. Then I got on an airplane and got here, and I flew over the ocean. The reason why I explain why I flew over the ocean is because here a lot of people, when they know you're from Africa, they always ask you, oh, how did you get here? Or did you get here on a boat or a bus? Because a lot of people don't think that there's airplanes in Africa. But there is airplanes in Africa. And that's how I got here. And we flew to the US, and then we went to Michigan, and then we landed in Lansing, Michigan, where I stayed until I moved here to Dallas, Texas.
Well, my journey, I did land in Lansing, Michigan too, but mine was a little bit different. I mean, like, my moving here was so abrupt, okay? So I went to boarding school in Zimbabwe, and all of a sudden, one of my teachers comes and says, your mom is here. So I'm thinking, what is she doing here? And I go and I see my mom, and she's like, she was really reassuring. She was like, I need you to pack your stuff, because we gotta go, but don't worry, everything's okay. So she was really kind of reassuring, but I was thinking, what is going on? And she was like, well, I'll explain on the way home. So yeah, packed up all my stuff, and on the way home, she basically was like, we're moving, we're leaving, we're going to America. So I'm thinking to myself, what about my friends? What about like my whole life here? You know when you're 16, everything's about you, right, So I was really kind of selfish and thinking, what about me? But instead of even going home to the home that I grew up in, we headed to my aunt's house. So I didn't even have a chance to say goodbye to the house I grew up in and all of that. It was just like really abrupt. And I just remember calling my friends and crying, and like a couple days before we left, just crying all those. It was just nothing but tears, because it was just all about like, what, my life is here, what's going on? It was really just like up and let's go.
Wow. So I didn't cry. I went to the embassy. I went to the embassy. I wanted to come and live in the US. I wanted to see what the world was like. So I did come here, and I just didn't cry, guys.
Yeah.
I was here, and here I am today. Also, with me, what happened was, when you're home in Zimbabwe, and everybody can relate with where they come from. When you're home, there's always a structure, and the structure is that your mom tells you what time to do things and not, and then your neighbors tell you the same thing, and then 10 streets away, they're still watching. So there was that, growing up, because everybody was just friendly and there was so much togetherness. But then when you come here, and I was the first one here actually in our family. I came here and I was living with some family friends, but you get to that moment where you miss that. You miss that structure. You miss your mom telling you what to do, because now you have the freedom to go buy pizza at 10 o'clock, not take a shower at 9 o'clock like a girl should do, growing up. So you have all this freedom of doing all these things, but you do miss that structure. So with me, I missed that structure. That's the one thing that I missed, when I came here.
Yeah. I guess I can relate to some of the culture shock. I mean, I moved with my parents. My mom and my dad came shortly after. So I didn't really have non-structure, but I definitely experienced culture shock when I was here. And like I said before, I was in boarding school in Zimbabwe, so if you guys are familiar with the Zimbabwean school systems, it's very strict and kind of rigid. So here I am coming from a school where you're in uniform 24/7, except for when you go to bed, and maybe sometimes on the weekends. And you treat your teachers with a certain level of respect, just like you would your parents or other adults. And switch to now being here in America, my mom had my brother and I go to school for just a few months before starting community college. So here we are going into the high school. First of all, nobody's wearing uniform, right? So people got pink hair, green hair, whatever you want to do. Some people are walking into school with like pajama pants on. So I'm thinking, what is going on? And in class, students are, some teachers are comfortable with you addressing them by their first name. Kids are chewing gum in class. And I'm really thinking, can I do this? Is this really what is really going on here? It was really different for me. And in Zimbabwe, when you're the new kid, everybody is all up in your business. Everyone wants to know who you are, where you're from. Everyone wants to be your friend. But when I was here, nobody really quite cared. People were just kept it moving, doing their own thing, So I'm like, I come from practically living with my best friends in boarding school to now not knowing anybody and being in this class or classes and just thinking, what is going on? That was such a huge shock for me. And I remember people would always, because of the way I talked, here, in Zimbabwe we speak the Queen's English, we're so like proper. So kids used to say that to me. Kids used to be like, why do you talk so proper? And I'm like, that's just the way I talk. But every time they would ask those questions, it would follow up with, where are you from? Oh, you're from Zimbabwe. Oh, that's in Africa. Oh, so you just learned English in 2 months? Oh my God. And some of these questions that I really, as a teenager, you don't want to deal with these questions. So I was like, I need to switch up my American accent real quick. I need to go from saying, talk and water to talk and water. So I was real quick with it, because I was like, you know what? Because as a teenager, you just want to blend in with everybody else. You don't really want to stick out and be different. Right. So I was quick with it.
Well, with me, I was here with my parents, so I did have that structure. But I remember one time when I was in 8th grade, we were on our way to a class trip to Canada, and at that time, I still wasn't a citizen. I only had my green card. So while I was in the back with my friends, 30 minutes before we actually got to the border, my teacher's like, oh, hey, Spia, come sit in the front. So she wanted me to sit in the front, so just in case anybody came on the bus and they wanted to ask me any detailed questions, I was right there to answer them. So when we got to the border, the people came onto the bus. They didn't really ask me too many questions, so that was good, because I'm only 14, so I can't answer too many detailed questions about my immigration status. So I went back to the back of the bus, and my friends who didn't know that I wasn't a citizen kind of had a lot of questions, like, oh, hey, Spiwe, what was that about? And I'm like, oh, I'm not a citizen, so I have a green card, so they wanted to know what my status was in this country. And they're like, oh, okay. And then I actually had my green card with me, and they're like, oh, can we see it? And I showed it to them, and they're like, that card's not green. Like, I know it's not green, it's just called a green card. So I really couldn't explain to them, but I just let them know that this shows my status here in America. And to me, I feel like as young immigrant children, we had to learn at a young age that documentation is very important, right. And we got to keep that so we can always show what our status is anytime while we're here in the United States.
Right.
So with me, when I came on a visitor's visa. So with me, it was work. You know, I didn't do things the Zimbabwean culture way. So the Zimbabwean culture way is you finish high school, you go to college, you graduate from college or university, and then you get married. And the first marriage is the lobola, the dowry, where they pay the cows, many cows.
The cows are the shmoney.
Exactly. And then after paying the cows, you have a white wedding or a court wedding, because that's when they allow you to do that. So with me, I did things flip. I first had a baby, and then I went to school. And then we did the dowry, and this is where I am now, and I'm doing great. Yes. Like, you find your own way of doing things. I know, back home there's a certain way of doing, but when you're out here in America, you find your own way of doing things. You find yourself. So I found myself, and I think I've done really well for myself.
Yeah, you have, girl. You have. I think I can relate with that, having to kind of grow up really fast, because I remember, here I am, 17, 18, I'm calling my friends back home, and they're just talking to me about A-level exams that are coming up, and who's taking me to the dance, and here I am thinking about my college schedule and my job and multiple jobs at the time, trying to make ends meet, because a lot of times especially like in my situation, when you move maybe with your parents and your family, some of those roles shift. It's not just mom and dad who are the ones bringing in the money, because a lot of times we're starting from scratch when we move from wherever we're, coming from. So everybody's contributing, and everybody's has some sort of input within the household. So I felt like I had to grow up really fast. I liked it though. I liked kind of feeling like, oh, here I am, making my own money, doing my own thing. But you do grow up super fast, and I think it's different, It's hard to explain, but you just have to go through it to kind of explain.
In me today, I still go through people telling me how American I am or how Zimbabwean I am. But with my parents, I was brought up basically with two different cultures, with the American culture and the Zimbabwean culture. So during the day, I would go to school, eat lunch with my friends, eat macaroni, tater tots, and then I would go home at night and eat sadza with my parents. So with that, I'm really thankful that my parents never forgot that, yeah, we still are in America, but we're Zimbabweans at the end of the day, and they still taught us the Zimbabwean values and the culture. But I do have one little thing. When I was in kindergarten, my mom did cut off my hair. And so that was something that I had to deal with when I went to school. Because in Zimbabwe, girls do wear short cuts, and it is normal.
Yeah. So actually, some schools require girls to wear short hair.
I went to a school that I was told to cut my hair. I had short hair.
Mm-hmm.
So, but I'm here, I have friends who have little barrettes going this way, that way, and I don't have no hair. And they're like, Spirit, where's your hair? I was like, I don't have any.
I don't have any.
But with that being said, I was able to get over that, and basically I think my mom was just preparing me for this haircut that I have today.
Okay.
So, so that's one thing that I did have to deal with at school, and kids do deal with different things. But also, I'm really happy for the Zimbabwean kids and just African kids in general growing up now, because in school, I guess I don't want to say it's cool to be Zimbabwean now, but it's more acceptable to be Zimbabwean in school now. So like they can go to school and they can tell people, oh, I'm from this country, I'm from that country, my parents speak this language. They can wear their dashikis to school and no one's gonna ask any questions. As before as me, and other people can agree, when I was going to school, you would hope no one asks nothing about Africa. No one wants to know what your name means. You just hope the teacher says your name and they keep it pushing. No one asks too many questions. But today, I'm just happy that they're able to embrace their culture every day and share it with their friends, They have different music artists that they can relate to. They have Toki vibes.
Killer
There's
T.
Killer T. Let's emphasize Killer T.
I knew you'd say that.
And just there's things for them that let them know that in this day and age, it's okay to be African, and don't let no one tell you to be. Don't let no one let you be ashamed of where you're from, and make sure you always be proud.
Yeah, I you know, when you say that, it makes me think of how, like I said, in high school, I was trying to get rid of that accent real quick. But the minute I got to college, and you know, I felt like I could be myself more in college, because you're meeting people from all different parts of the world. Some of my friends are, you know, Vietnamese, Taiwanese, American, Nigerian, and it's kind of cool to be in class and they say, you know, tell us a fun fact about you, and you're like, well, I'm from Zimbabwe. And everybody's like, oh my gosh, tell me about Zimbabwe. What's it like? What do you guys do? So I felt so much more comfortable being myself, and then maybe it comes with growth and maturity and whatnot, but I think just being around people from all sorts and all walks of life made me so much more comfortable being myself, and I just kept thinking to myself, I want my accent back. I want to get back to, I want my Zim accent back. I want to go back to saying talk instead of talk, so people can ask me more and I can talk about being Zimbabwean. Yeah, because it was, you know, I think you're right. It's kids have got so much more to people to relate to who are from their countries, and because they're seeing them on TV, they're seeing actresses and actors from their countries, you know, so it's different than maybe earlier on, you know.
Right, so which brings us to, you know, we're all diaspora, like, you know, diaspora is a big, broad term, but we're all under that umbrella of diaspora, especially if you're not born here and you're from another country and you come and live here, you're from diaspora. So my wish is that with this show, we can kind of bring people together, you know, from diaspora to help each other out, you know, to support each other. This is pretty much the engine of our show, right?
Yeah, that definitely reminds me of why we started this in the first place. I think a lot of times, even in the diaspora community, like Sneaky said, diaspora is anywhere. Whichever country you're from, living in a country that's not your country of origin. A lot of times when we're amongst ourselves as people in diaspora, we have a lot of us versus them mentalities, you know, like, I'm from Zimbabwe, but I speak this language versus that language, or I'm from this tribe versus that tribe, and that happens, or I'm from this country versus that country. And I think instead of allowing our differences to separate us, we should really encourage each other to let our differences, like, to celebrate our differences. There's nothing wrong with being proud of speaking a different language or whatever, but that shouldn't be a tool to separate each other. So we want to be able to encourage people in diaspora, the diaspora community, to empower each other. Let's support each other. That's why we created this platform where we can empower you guys, and we can have you come on and showcase your stories, because so many people can relate to so many different ways that we've all arrived to where we are, and we can showcase your talents, all of that. So, you know, it really is, like you said, the engine of the show. You know, we're here now, we're doing well here, we're blossoming in our environments here in America.
That's true.
And that's a really beautiful thing, but I think it's important for us not to forget home, you know, where we come from, because we are who we are because of our roots and, you know, our families back home. And so I think you guys want to stay tuned, because we have a really special guest coming up who is a great example of succeeding here, as well as doing a lot of good back home. Okay, so stay tuned in Ndeipi MuDiaspora, and we'll be back in a little bit. That's my attempt at a Michelle Obama wink.